Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is Left Bank Books welcomes best-selling authors of the Reese Witherspoon Book Club pick, The Last Mrs. Parrish, Liv Constantine, who will discuss their new book, The Stranger in the Mirror. Constantine tonight will be in conversation with mystery fiction critic for the Sun Sentinel, Oline Cogdill. Left Bank Books is St. Louis's oldest independent bookstore. We would like to thank all of our supporters, the supporters of Liv Constantine and Oline Cogdill, and everyone for their outpouring of love for our bookstore. We offer curbside pickup and delivery to anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. We have reopened for customers coming inside the store, so you can come in and find this incredible book on our front table. And we are incredibly happy to be able to bring our event series virtual. We believe that events are a way to expand your mind and bring in new thoughts to make the world a better place. Also, just to have fun. We hope that you enjoy this event, and we hope that you support Left Bank Books by purchasing a signed copy for you or for your friends at left-bank.com. We have book plates for these books, and it is beautiful and a great addition to this book. Purchasing a copy of the book from Left Bank Books allows us to keep our bookstore and staff operating, and it allows us to keep this event series going. So thank you for your support. I am Shane Mullen. I'm the events coordinator for Left Bank Books. I help produce our hundreds of author events each year with a fantastic team here in St. Louis. We will be taking questions from you, the audience, at the end of the event, so you can type your questions as a comment, and you can do that at any point in time throughout the event. And be sure to follow Left Bank Books on Facebook and YouTube to be notified about all of our fantastic virtual events. And now about tonight's book, Stranger in the Mirror, a diabolically twisty, psychologically unsettling novel about a woman with no recollection of her past, from the authors of the Reese Witherspoon Book Club pick, The Last Mrs. Parrish and The Wife Stalker. Providence Journal says, Liv Constantine plants her flag squarely in land staked out by the likes of Lisa Gardner and Karen Slaughter, who we hosted last night, kind of. We had an event with Karen last night. Addison's about to get married, but she's not looking forward to the big day. It's not her fiancé. He's a wonderful man. It's because Addison doesn't know who she really is. A few years ago, a kind driver found her bleeding next to a New Jersey highway and rescued her. While her physical wounds healed, Addison's memory never returned. She doesn't know her real name, or how she ended up injured on the side of a road, or why she can't shake the notion that she may have done something very, very bad. In a posh home in the Boston suburbs, Julian tries to figure out what happened to his loving, caring wife, Cassandra, who disappeared without a trace 2 years ago. She would never have left him and their 7-year-old daughter, Valentina, of her own free will, or would she? As these two lives intersect, The Stranger in the Mirror hooks readers with riveting drama, told with Liv Constantine's hallmark blend of glamour, tense psychological thrills, and jaw-dropping twists. They are perfect at doing jaw-dropping twists. Lisa Gardner, the #1 New York Times bestselling author, says, gripping. Equal parts character study and domestic thriller, The Stranger in the Mirror makes for a perfect weekend read, a highly enjoyable page-turner where you race to the end, breathless to discover the shocking truth. And now, about tonight's speakers. Liv Constantine is the pen name of sisters Lynn Constantine and Valerie Constantine. Together, they are the best-selling author of the Reese Witherspoon Book Club pick, The Last Mrs. Parrish, The Last Time I Saw You, The Wife Stalker, and The Stranger in the Mirror. Their books have been praised by USA Today, The Sunday Times, People Magazine, and Good Morning America, among many others. Lynn and Valerie are national and international best-selling authors, and their books have been translated into 27 languages, are available in 32 countries, and are in development for television and film. Lynn lives in Milford, Connecticut, Valerie in Annapolis, Maryland. And tonight they will be in conversation with Oline Cogdill. Oline reviews mystery fiction for Publishers Weekly, Shelf Awareness, Associated Press, Mystery Scene Magazine, and the Sun Sentinel and Fort Lauderdale Tribune Publishing Wire. She also blogs regularly at mysteryscenemag.com. She has received the 2013 Raven Award from the Mystery Writers of America, the 1999 Ellen Nair Award by the American Crime Writers League, and the 1997 Sun Sentinel's Pettyjohn Award. Oline is a judge for the 2019, 2020, and 2021 Los Angeles Times Book Prize in the Mystery Thriller category. And now, I am so happy and proud to welcome our guests for the evening, Lynn and Valerie Constantine, Liv Constantine, and Oline Cogdill for Left Bank Books. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Shane. Hello, everyone. And I am especially delighted to do this event tonight, not only because I love Liv Constantine's books, but I grew up in Missouri, and Left Bank Books, of course, is in St. Louis. And a shout out to any of my friends from Charleston, Missouri, who said they were going to be here. Welcome. Anyway, let's get to it. I reviewed very positively The Stranger in the Mirror, and it's such a good thriller. It really keeps me going. The plot device of a person with amnesia has certainly been used often. You know, you see it in movies, in daytime dramas, but you gave it a very fresh approach. And what was your inspiration to revolve a novel around amnesia?
So Valerie and I were together. As you know, we live in two different states, so we're fortunate when we get to spend time together. And we were in the UAE for 10 days at the Sharjah Book Festival. So we had lots of time to talk, and we had actually finished a different book that we were going to have to go back, and we had done a first draft, and we had a lot of revisions. And we just didn't have that sense of excitement that we'd like to have when we're in the midst of a book project. So, I said to Valerie, what would you think about putting that on the side and starting fresh? And she said, yeah, I'm game for that. And so we said, all right, what are we going to write instead? And we started talking about how much we loved stories with amnesia and what a rich sort of tapestry you can build when you're coming from a place where someone doesn't have any idea, or the reader has no idea where someone is coming from. And we became enamored of the idea, and also of the idea of going back and doing more research into the brain and memory and all, everything associated with it. So that was the initial spark. And then when we came home, we did a deep dive into, like I said, a lot of research. And from that, we developed, we wanted to do it differently. And I'm thrilled to hear that you say that we did. And that's how we started to develop the story.
The amnesia scenes are so realistic. And you just mentioned you did research. What type of research did you do?
I think we purchased every book on amnesia that we could get our hands on. And we did a lot of reading before we even began. And actually, the reading that we did helped us to form a plot also. We also we talked to psychologists. We read about studies that had been done with amnesia patients and just on the brain itself. And the other interesting thing that we were able to do, and thanks to the internet, is that there were blogs and essays by people who were amnesiacs, and many of them who had never regained their memory. And so these people wrote very personal stories about what it was like to be in that situation, because I think we can all sort of imagine what it would be like, but you really don't know unless you have lived through that. And so these were very informative and helpful, and things that you wouldn't necessarily read in a book about amnesia, scientific explanation and studies, but actual people living with it. And here's what it's like. Here's what I have to go through every day.
So bringing that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I was just like bringing that human face to a phenomena or a syndrome, or I don't know what you call it, is very important, and it really comes across. Were there things you wanted to avoid in writing about amnesia?
That is a really good question. I think we wanted to avoid having a character that was bland, for one thing. But that was a concern, knowing that we have this person who doesn't really know herself that well, and how do we make her sympathetic, interesting, a full person, even though she is really stuck in this kind of cycle of trying to remember and having flashbacks. And so we tried to really tap into what the emotional experience of being in that situation would be like. And we tried to say to ourselves, okay, how would we react to this situation? How would we interact with this person if we didn't know anything except what she knows, which is that, from the beginning, it's not a spoiler to say we know she went through trauma because there's evidence of a failed suicide attempt and the scars on her arms. And she isn't sure if it's a memory or a nightmare, but she sees these bloody images. And so a part of her wonders if she's the one who's done something or if something has been done to her. So we tried to really just focus more on the emotion. And then we knew, of course, what had happened to her. So we brought in a lot of that subconscious memory or body memory that we have, even if our mind forgets, our body remembers the trauma, so that there would be triggers for her where maybe she would smell a certain thing or she would see something and it would bring something out. So we wanted to make it as authentic as possible. We wanted to avoid it being this cardboard cutout story of just, she doesn't remember anything, so we can do anything we want. We wanted to really have a backstory that made sense and have something that at the end of if she does remember where she came from, that would kind of make sense of everything, right? So hard to talk about it without giving too much
away. Yeah.
No spoilers.
Right.
And I think we wanted to stay true to the science, to not take it and then turn it into something that we made up or thought, well, since we really don't know much about the brain, we can say this happened or that happened. But really, I think everything that happens in the book is based on something that is really that has happened, and not something that we just said, "Oh, we'll throw that in."
Right. I mean, not the exact story, fortunately, but yes. But the type.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. You can get overly stuck on the research and you forget the people, which doesn't happen in this book. Very much people. It's got to be a challenge, though. I mean, most of the time when people write books, they have a backstory in their mind about the character, where they grew up, what they did. But that's got to be even more challenging because the backstory, she doesn't know. So, yeah.
It was challenging. As Lynn said, it was, at the beginning we said, how are we going to make this character not just be flat and blank since her life was a blank? But part of that, I think, worked because when the story opens, she has been living in Philadelphia for 2 years. So she at least has 2 years of a past and knows a little bit about who she is now. So I think that helped a lot to have her in the present and remembering at least 2 years of her life.
Right. And what was interesting too, I mean, again, we know, it's not a spoiler that there's this other story going on with this man whose wife has been missing for 2 years and that the two of them converge. And so it was also interesting when Addison is presented with some facts about her life and who she is, and having developed her own personality in the past 2 years and looking at this person and different things, whether it's, looking at her Kindle app and seeing the books that she supposedly is reading, and she's thinking, wow, what kind of a person was I? So that was very interesting too, that to have her be at odds with this person that she apparently was or is, and really trying to struggle with, is that me, and how much do you change? I mean, can a person be one way and then have amnesia and become a completely different person, or do you stay the same? Those are all really, I think unanswerable and probably different in every situation.
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was interesting that you showed not just the psychological trauma of having amnesia, but also there's a physical trauma. And, I never thought about that before, but Addison really feels the loss of her memory in her body. Yes. And that's got to be true, right? Yeah.
So that was another aspect of the research that really surprised both Valerie and me. And that was, we knew, of course, from reading that the body holds trauma, even if the mind doesn't remember it. But what was really fascinating was a study that was done with mice. And what they did is they sprayed a substance that smelled like cherry blossoms. And then they shocked the mice in conjunction with that smell over and over again, so that the mice reached a point where all it took was them to smell the cherry blossoms and they would cower in fear. But the interesting thing was they then bred them with mice who had not undergone that experience. And 2 generations later, the mice pups were exposed to the smell and they cowered in fear. So they had so that was like, I mean, you know, so what they inferred was that there's generational trauma from events that occurred that we have no experience, no direct knowledge of, but it actually is just passed down through our genes.
Yeah, in our bodies.
In our bodies. So
it's kind of terrifying.
Yes.
To think about,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I find writing about memory is so interesting because so many times in our lives, we are sure we remembered something, how it happened, what happened. We are positive, and then we find out, well, it wasn't really that day. It really didn't happen, and it didn't happen to you. So that's got to be another challenge for both of you, right?
You know, it's so true because, as you say, memory is fickle. It's unreliable. You can you can be shown a photograph when you're little of, you know, you're on the beach and you're playing with this, you know, blown up beach dragon or something, and then you've seen that picture enough and enough and enough that later in life you think you actually remember the event. Oh yes, I remember I was playing on the beach with this big thing that was blown up, and you know, I was in the waves. And the other thing I think people experience is 2 people will be talking about a memory, or I might say to you, Oline, remember when we went to the beach in Fort Lauderdale and we had a great time, but you got burned? And you say, I don't remember that at all.
Happens a lot. Yes.
And that happens, I think, to everybody, where you think, oh my gosh, is this person crazy, or have I really forgotten something that I did when I was 10? Because you sort of feel like, well, you know, by the age of 10 or whatever, you should remember everything, but we don't. We really don't.
No, I think, and maybe this has been done, but I think what would be so interesting would be some experiments where they would videotape something with 2 or 3 people, right? And then go back a year later and ask and see if anybody does remember it accurately. Because that would really be the only way to know, right? If you actually have the evidence of something, because we all think that, right? Or we think we remember a conversation. I always feel like I remember a conversation verbatim, and, you know, maybe I do, but who knows?
I don't think that about me. I never remember things verbatim. I know that.
I do sometimes, but
even eyewitnesses, you know, supposedly are true. You know, in trials. Yeah, it's
because everyone sees something different. Oh no, he wore black. No, he wore gray. Yeah. And that's been proven that sometimes, and it's a trauma of having seen something that's traumatic that you just kind of block things out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I also thought it was interesting, and one thing is I want anybody in the audience, please put comments that you have and questions, because we're going to chat a long time here. Addison really wants to know her background, but she's also very afraid of it, you know, because as you said, she has these scars. She knows that somewhere along the line, violence was either done to her, or she did violence, or she herself did violence to her own self. So can you talk a little bit about that reluctance she has?
Sure. You know, she's afraid. At first, when she's found by Ed on the side of the road, of course, you know, she knows she's afraid of something. She doesn't know what, but she is trying to find out, and she's talking to doctors. But as these flashbacks begin to occur, she really doesn't know who she can even tell this to, because she doesn't want to tell her fiance, well, I've got visions of, you know, dead people, this kind of thing, because if it turns out that she's the violent one, you know, what's going to happen? Then she's really going to be alone. So she knows that she's terrified of something. And there is a part of her, I think, that would like to be able to just start a new life from who she is now and not have to think about that. But the realistic part of her knows that that's really not, you know, going to happen, and that she really can't go that way. So it's a big struggle to be able to, she has this sort of like wonderful life right in front of her that she's ready to step into with this great family. And yet she's held back because she knows that there are things in her past that she has to figure out. And as the book goes on and more things come to light, she becomes more and more afraid. because it doesn't, always look so good. And I think we could all, I think probably relate to that. It's one thing if you're trying to remember certain things, but if you think that maybe, you hurt someone, then what, are you going to go to jail? Are you going to, is your whole life going to be over? It would be pretty terrifying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought some of the most poignant scenes were her wishing she had a family. Like, she's at this engagement party, and it's her fiance seems like a nice guy. His family's very lovely, and everyone's congratulating them and saying, "Oh, this is going to be great." But she doesn't have anyone there to congratulate her. Not really.
Yeah.
And she keeps wondering, is there a family waiting for me? Is someone missing me? I just found that very poignant.
Right. Is someone looking for me, mourning my loss? So for 2 years, wondering where I am, if I'm dead or alive. Yes. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And our history is so important. Our friendships, our family, it's who we are. And she has no history at all. And here she is. Gabriel is her fiance, and his best man gets up and he tells stories. Here's what my pal Gabriel, and here's what we did, and some of the stories. And she looks at her friend of 6 months, who is going to be her maid of honor, and it's Gabriel's sister, and says she has nothing she can say about me. She has known me for 6 months and doesn't know anything. So it's a very lonely feeling for her, and isolated.
Oh, yeah. And, it's also, who do you trust if you have amnesia? Who can, like you just said.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she can't even trust herself, which is I mean, she trusts, the new people in her life, but even that too, she doesn't know, because a lot of our judgment calls, right, are born from experience and from making bad decisions. And so again, if all you have is 2 years past of experience with not a lot of relationships, it's really hard to know if you're making a good decision or a bad decision.
Right. In your research, what did you discover about what triggers a memory? You mentioned smell, and is there other things that trigger ourselves?
Music, a song, a fragrance. Well, of course, you use that smell. There was a stuffed animal, could be, something that you remember, or somebody dressed as someone from your past that might not be a good memory, or could be a good memory.
I think the smell is that is always the most evocative. And I don't know, I think it's our sense of smell, whatever the relationship to the brain, it's the strongest. So that would bring back a rush of memories and much more quickly. Mm-hmm. I think everything else. There's other things are triggers too, but in terms of all of the senses, the smell is the strongest in terms of.
It's interesting because I have the perfume I wore on my first date with my now husband. And every time I wear it, he says, "Oh God, that really smells good." And he's trying to remember where he smelled that. And mentioned that absolutely. When I hear something on the Odie station and it brings back a memory, I'm back in Charleston, Missouri, riding around the big block with my girlfriends.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And how do you? I thought it was interesting too. Is how do you start a new life without an identification? All the little details we have to go through, Social Security cards and finding a job, getting rent. These are things you need proof of who you are.
Right. And, we don't think about that. And that was one of the things that people who have amnesia talked about. Like, how do I open a bank account? And I don't have a birth certificate. I can't get a birth certificate because they don't, and no one's going to write out a birth certificate for you. And so in one case, one of the men who we read about said, I was never able to resolve this. No government agency was able to help me and say, okay, here's what we'll do. You're in a bind and we'll issue a Social Security card. He just kept going round and round and round. And finally they said to him, sorry, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So, you don't really, the only way to do it is illegally, really.
Yeah, because we talked to law enforcement too, and I have a friend in the FBI, and I said, "Well, when they were like, well, Yeah, you can't, because right. I mean, especially nowadays with Homeland Security and everything,
Right.
having no identity, it's a big problem.
Terrifying to think of. I mean, and as a non-amnesiac, that would never have occurred to me that they'd have that problem. But yeah.
I mean, who's going to rent an apartment to you if you don't know who you are?
Right.
Do you bring them first, last, and security and in a pile of cash?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love the scenes with Gigi and Ed, who become her surrogate parents. And Ed is a truck driver who finds her, takes her home, and you think, oh my goodness, this is going to end badly very quickly. And they kind of help her get on her feet, treat her like their daughter. There's a lot of trucking organizations. And did you do research on this? Is this something that really happens? Because he does this on a continuing basis, is helping young women get back on their feet.
Yeah.
Well, he certainly picks them up if they're hitchhiking, because as he says to Addison, who's not Addison at the time, he says, this is really dangerous, what you're doing. And I belong to an organization that looks out for hitchhikers and young girls who could otherwise get in trouble, be trafficked or raped or killed. So he's very aware of that because of a situation in his past too.
Mm-hmm. But there is an organization, the Truckers Against, I don't know, Trafficking or what. I mean, that is actually a genuine thing. And then Valerie, if you want to, talk about, we don't ever, except for in this case, really base our characters on real people. But Ed actually is, and I'll let Valerie talk about that because she.
Yeah, he is. He's based actually on my daughter-in-law's father, who was a trucker. He's deceased, but he was. The description of him and everything. This man was, 6'4", and he was one of these strong, silent types, but very someone that you just felt comfortable with and knew that in any sort of emergency he'd handle it and you would be safe. And so Ed was a very dear, really both of us, right? We really loved that character, and he just seemed very alive for both of us.
I'm so glad to know that he was based on a real person. The FBI on the other side has a task force in which, because there are truckers who are serial killers. And C.J. Box wrote about this in The Highway, which is like one of the most terrifying books I've ever read. And it was just so nice to see this other side presented. He's a really nice guy. Yeah. Is it hard to come up with villains?
Actually, no. I think it's hard.
Is that a terrible answer?
We love writing about, I don't know. Someone said, "What happened there, Zibby, this morning? What happened in your childhood for the two of you?" Which nothing did, but we like writing the villains, and I think this is the first of our 4 books really that has so many good characters, despite the fact that it's a thriller and that there's still things to be worried about, and there is a villain in it. But we fight over who gets to write the villain scenes.
The villain scenes. like actors say, they love to play the really bad characters because it's fun to write the villains.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the beginnings of your writing together. You obviously are very close sisters. Yeah. You obviously seem to like each other. How did I hope you do. How did the writing as a team come about?
We've always been big readers in our family. And Valerie and I have 14 years between us. So we didn't really grow up, the traditional, we had like siblings. So there's not ever been sibling rivalry or anything like that. We got very, very close when I was maybe 13, 14, and started spending, Valerie was already married at that point, summers together. And as I said, we would always read with our mother and our aunt, discuss books together. And I guess maybe 20 some years ago, I said to Valerie, we were reading a lot of books about ethnic families. And I said, there really isn't anything about Greek families, and we're Greek. And so she said, well, then why don't we write one? So when I went out and bought a book, How to Write and Sell Your First Novel, and yes, read the book and said, okay, this is what we have to do. And, we plotted everything out, and we took about a year, wrote the book, didn't revise it enough, sent it out like first draft, okay, thinking, we're going to be, on Oprah, the whole bit. Anyway, 4 or 5 years later, we finally found a small publisher. And that was called Circle Dance. It was not a thriller, more family saga, but with a little bit of an intrigue thread. And then I moved away, and we both got involved in, with work and what we were doing. And it wasn't until, I guess, 10 years ago or so, I went to Thriller Fest and got rejuvenated. I had been working on a thriller for years and years while I was working. And had homeschooled my twins, and they went back to school in middle school. So I had some time to myself. And I was so inspired that I finished my book, and I brought Valerie with me the following year. And that's when she said, why don't we collaborate together again? And we did. And we wrote another book before The Last Mrs. Parrish that didn't, that we kept getting interest, but not enough. And one of the things that we learned at Thriller Fest was just write the next book. So that's what we did. We wrote The Last Mrs. Parrish. And that was the book that got us our agent and launched our career together as Liv. So.
Mm-hmm. The funny thing is that, writing a book 20 some years ago, there was no email was just coming in, right? Internet, all of that. So you had to copy the book and mail this big, thick manuscript out. So it was expensive. And agents would say, you'd mail it to agents, and they would say, well, we'll get back to you. If you don't hear from us within 6 months, then just assume that we're not taking you on. So that it was this waiting game. It wasn't even like they would call you or in a week and say, we're not interested. And so it was this waiting game. And I kept thinking, I could wait 10 years to hear back from people. And then, of course, you had to send a self-addressed thing. With
SAS, yeah.
So they could get right. It was a whole different world then. So it's easier now to just send your manuscript off and email it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we'd get the SAS back in the mail, and you get all excited if it was a little thick, maybe, or thin. But then you get the form letter, or occasionally somebody would be nice enough to write a few things. Well, I liked it, but not really what we're looking for. So it was a lot, all of those ups and downs.
And right after we finished it and started sending it out, guess what movie came out? On my big fat Greek wedding.
Which was nothing like our book, but it was like, there was nothing out in entertainment about the Greeks, and then all of a sudden,
right. It was funny.
Oh, how funny. How does the collaboration work? Who comes up with the plot? How does the writing work? Is it really very much together?
Very much. From the very beginning.
Yeah.
We probably spend 2 to 3 months just talking about the plot and the characters, developing the characters, talking about, we always have the major twist at the beginning. We don't have all the little twists along the way, and we don't have a structured outline of this is exactly how the book is going to proceed from beginning, middle to end, because we allow ourselves the ability to be able to go off in different directions and just have freedom while we're writing. But we do talk back and forth. We talk every day. And so it goes something like, well, what if we do this? And the other one will go, but what if we do this? And then, and so it sort of just builds on each other, which is a great part of collaborating.
Oh, yeah.
And then we begin to develop our characters. And as we do that, Lynn sends me photographs of the characters that she grabs from the internet. Okay, here is life. And then we look at their houses. And so anyway, that part's a lot of fun. And then we begin the writing. And the writing is just, we have our assignments every day. I'll let you talk a little bit, Lynn.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we know what scenes generally we're going to each write every day, and we'll write them independently of each other, email them to each other, and then we usually Zoom around 4 or 5 o'clock and discuss what's been written, and then continue. And so oftentimes now our process, I think, evolves with every book. And so a lot of times I'll write a half of a chapter and send it to Valerie and say, do you want to finish this? And she will, and she'll send me something and I'll finish it. And then we edit each other's work. So by the time we have finished, because we go through 3 or 4 rounds before we even hand it off to our editor, you can see a sentence that could be half Valerie and half me. So very, very, very much collaborative.
Do you ever disagree?
Never.
Really?
No,
Well, that's wonderful.
That was a joke. I was kidding.
Not often. I mean, yeah, it's always a joke. I think the disagreement is in the beginning stages often, when we're trying to figure out what we're doing. And that may be when I want to go in one direction and Valerie say, no, we should go in this direction. And we work it out. But once we're on a trajectory and we know the story, then we both really try to be so true to the character that if something is off, we'll say, well, here's why I think this needs to change. And, 9 times out of 10, the other person will go, you're right. Or, well, I don't think so because of this. And then the other person will say, okay. So fortunately, we haven't had any knockdown drag.
And being in 2 different cities, it's
Yeah, exactly. We can just be like, listen, I have to go. I'll talk to you later.
Yes. We'll discuss this tomorrow.
For me, I think your books are very tailor-made to become a film or a TV series or something along that. So, can you talk about Reese Witherspoon?
Well, I mean, Reese picked The Last Mrs. Parrish as a book club pick. She's not for any film or anything, but we do have an option on both The Last Mrs. Parrish and The Last Time I Saw You as feature films. For we can't say what. For Parrish, we've got the producer and the platform, and the writer don't have any talent that we know of attached. We find things out, and then for The Last Time I Saw You, we actually have a producer and talent attached, but no announcements yet. So who knows? I mean, apparently what happens, you don't hear a whole lot, and then if it's a go, it's kind of warp speed. So we're waiting and hoping for that. And then some interest in the other 2, but nothing concrete yet. So
we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. That's what everyone says when they.
Yeah.
Right. We've been told to not get excited until we're sitting in the theater seat, watching it on screen.
Right.
That's when you get excited.
Yeah,
right.
But we can't help it. We still get excited anyway.
Have you even cast it in your mind, or?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Those pictures you save.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
We have.
Shane has a couple of questions. I think he wants to come in.
Hey, Shane.
Hi. This has been such a great conversation. I love it. So yeah, I want to remind the audience that if you have any questions, be sure to type those up now. If you have people that you think would make great actors for the, type in your suggestions, because maybe someone's watching who's a producer. I don't know. Maybe.
Right.
And I'll throw my name into the hat too, because.
Who would you like to play, Shane?
Oh, I would honestly love to play anyone in The Last Mrs. Parrish, because we're speaking about villains, and honestly, as an actor, I love to play the villain.
Right? Yes.
And I think that I could get away with it, because who would suspect this?
Right.
I love The Last Mrs. Parrish. I thought it was such a cool book.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I could see you in
So I wanted to get back to talking about the twist, because you are so good at the twist. And thank you, Oline, for bringing this up and talking about this, because it is always just shocking to read your books and be like maybe this time I'm going to get it figured out, maybe. And then just wow. So I want to know, A, have you either surprised the other one with one of the twists? And B, what do you think has been the most twisty book that you have read in the last couple of years?
Oh, wow. Most twisty book.
Oh, that is a tough
Yeah.
That's a tough one, isn't it? There's so
one.
many good ones.
There are so many good ones.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah. So,
One, I mean, well, Jennifer Hillier's,
Jar of Hearts.
yeah, I was gonna say, or no, Little Secrets, actually. Little Secrets.
that's right.
Yeah, that one really, yeah. I mean, I love all her books, but I think that twist really was a surprise for me. A big surprise. Very twisty.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to, I'm trying to remember titles now. Isn't that awful?
Do we surprise each other? I think that I surprise Valerie because I'm the one who does all the twists. I surprised you with that answer, didn't I?
I'll tell you what, this isn't really a twist, but this is the kind of thing that we let each other do. So when we were writing Mrs. Parrish, and as Lynn said, we sent chapters back and forth to each other each day. And I sent her back a chapter that was, Daphne. No, it was an Amber chapter, I'm sorry. And she was rooting through Daphne's things while Daphne was not home. And she opened a drawer and she found a gun. And I sent the chapter back to Lynn and I said, I don't know where the gun came from. I don't know.
What's with the gun?
It was in the drawer. I don't know why. And then it did turn out to be something that was part of the book afterwards. So so those kinds of things. But I don't think that we surprise each other with twists because we're talking back and forth so much. I mean, one of us might say, "Oh, that's a good twist. I like that."
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
The Wife Stalker had one of your books, that had a really good twist.
That did have a nice twist.
Yeah, we love that twist. I mean, I think that was one of our more tricky, but in a good way, though, I think. I mean, we're always fair. We always play fair because we want people to go back and read it and say, oh, I should have seen it. But yeah, and that one started off as a joke because we were talking and we said, what if there was a wife? And Valerie said, who wasn't, and she finished the sentence. And it was a joke. And I looked at her and said, that's it. And so, this is how they come. We just talk and sometimes it comes like that. Or other times, I mean, it's lots of conversations where we keep throwing things out. No, until.
There's a lot of no's.
Yeah, there's a lot of no's.
Yeah. Don't like that one. Nah, not interested. Yeah.
It's really not fair, though, because there are two of you writing, and there's only one of us reading and trying to figure it out. So, Oline, next time we're going to read one of their books, like for the next book, let's read it together at the same time and see if we can figure it out.
Buddy read. Yeah, it would be like, all right, let's put our heads together and see if
we can figure this out. Yeah.
But that is the thing. It's now, too, we have to say, okay, if we do this, people are going to think this because they're going to expect that. I mean, if it gets really hard, right? Yeah, when people expect. We could just do very straightforward nothing, and then people will be like, oh, no twist. What happened? No, we wouldn't do that.
Oh, man. I would honestly love that reaction as a reader and be like, really?
What? Yeah. Did I miss
the person I thought from the very beginning?
Right. Mm.
The person that I also love to recommend for twists. So like if someone has read your books and I'm like, you need to read Jocelyn Jackson.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Because the twist in her most recent one, Mother May I, was
oh, that's right. I did. Yeah, that was really good. I just finished that. Yeah. Very good.
When you're reading, do you figure them out? Like, do you kind of like know? Because like I feel like I read a lot of mysteries, and I know a lot of the like kind of Agatha Christie-esque like twists that happen, but I still am just like, I don't figure it out.
Some of them I do. Yeah.
Mostly I don't, and I'm glad. I mean, I think that, I keep, oh, where is she going with? I think I know where she's going with this, or where he's going, and
Yeah.
But, for the most part,
I don't either. And actually, I don't really care to guess. I want to be swept away by that story.
Me too.
By those characters in that plot. And I'm not trying to second guess any author. I'm just trying to enjoy myself.
Yeah.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. It is a lot of fun.
Although I did always try to guess the Agatha Christie ones. My son and I would read them, and we would read the same one at the same time and see who came up with the right killer. And we hardly ever did. She's tough. She's really tough, I think.
She's a tough plotter. She really is.
Yeah.
People forget how tough she was.
Yeah, she was brilliant. Really.
Shane, can I ask another question?
Yeah, go for it.
You said you're working on another book. We hope.
Yeah.
What next? Don't give away too much, but what next?
Okay, so two things we have coming up. One is another Audible original. So we had one Audible original that's the prequel to Mrs. Parrish, the first shot, and then we're doing another Audible original called Misconception about a woman who is convinced that her ex's new wife has a horrible secret. So that was fun. We wrote that, and we hope our final round of edits before we hand this next one off. And this one takes place in Washington, D.C. in the glittering political arena. But it's not a political thriller, but it's about a senator and his wife, his new wife, who got together in the aftermath of a terrible tragedy. And, so there's some shady D.C. characters and White House dinners and a couple of fun things like that in this one coming up.
Yeah. This one's fun.
Yeah.
Any
And twisty, hopefully you won't guess it.
since you live close to DC, is this based on like some actual experiences?
You mean my husband, the senator? No, my husband's not a senator.
All of a sudden you hear that she's
I
left.
worked in politics years and years ago. I worked in DC, so and probably things haven't changed that much, right?
I don't think they have. I think that, right. The nature of politics will always be probably the same. So, but yeah. So that's what we're working on right now. And
Can't say anymore. Right.
We have a lot of audience watching, but no one is typing up any questions. I'm certain that maybe
we have a shy audience.
Maybe, yeah.
They're so fascinated by the discussion.
I was just sitting there thinking, like, I had several questions written down, and Oline, you asked them all. So
Oh, good.
I was like,
Very good. Yeah.
you were such a great interviewer.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
Good questions.
Are you two ever in the same place together,
Mhm.
like on a vacation or something, and write together? Or
We
Yes.
have done that. Yep.
We do try. I mean, and we've done it for the past, 2 or 3. We try when we're in our second round to be together when we know we've got some chapter by chapter, and then we usually try to get together for a week. We did it with the Wife Stalker, and we did it with, I don't think we did it with Stranger, did we? I can't remember.
No, I came up. Remember, I rented a place near you on the beach.
That was for the new book, though.
the memory again.
See? I was thinking I remember correctly.
That's for the one we're working on now. The one that you were just here for?
No. Remember the office on the beach that was. Remember that?
No, I don't know what you're
Down the street from you, right down the street, and
Oh, that's right.
see?
Yeah.
See?
No, I thought that was on our book tour. That was on our, it was sort of, but that was sort of book tourish too. I don't know. When Colin came,
Try to. The pandemic made it difficult.
it did. So we were together this summer, or the spring actually, and we'll be together next week. Yeah.
Yes, right.
But we do try. Yeah, we do try to do that, and hopefully we'll start vacationing. We want to go to Greece, so we have an idea for a book.
Set a book there.
Yeah, we do have a book. The next one after this one that we want to set partially in Greece. So maybe we'll just go there for a month or something.
For a year.
For a year. Yeah. That would be great.
Right.
So reassuring us, the audience, Billiken Racer says, no, really, your questions are very good. And but then asks, how do you separate work and family time? So
how do you separate
work and family time?
Like, do you ever just call each other and be like, this is not about the book. Like, this is all about.
Right. Well, only if we're, yeah. I mean, we do. But the funny thing is we don't talk as much anymore when we're not in the midst of a book project because we talk so much. And then a couple of days will go by and I'll say, I miss you. Like, what's going on? And then we'll catch up. So, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. But I do think it's a kind of always on our mind, right? Even if we're not, everything is fodder for so even if we're hanging out just for fun, we might think, oh, we should think about writing, kind of goes into that.
Mm-hmm. And I think this whole past year, as everyone, I mean, everyone's gone through their difficulties this past year, but I think it's made it more about work because, I was stuck in my office. I was home and so it was work, and I could take a walk around my neighborhood, or I could put a mask on and go grocery shopping. But aside from that, there was pretty much nothing to do that was fun, or go out anywhere. So hopefully that all changes.
Have any of your other siblings ever tried to try to worm themselves into being part of the, like, I've got this great idea. Maybe I should help you out with the next one.
That's funny. Well, we do have a brother, we have two brothers, and one who he's a good writer and he likes to write, but he's never asked to write with us, right? He just more or less will say, want to look at, and we'll look at some pages. But one of the things about Stan is that he really, really doesn't like to take any criticism. So I'm not thinking it's a good career path for him, right? Because you have to be able to, he's a little sensitive. So he's a great writer. I wish he would.
He's a good writer and a good storyteller. Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe he'll, but I don't think we could. I think it would be a different dynamic writing, don't you? Together with you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think 3 would be a lot of people on one book. Too many cooks.
Yeah. No, I mean, even just writing, even just one, like you and Stan or me and Stan. I don't know. I think.
That would be a different dynamic.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have our rhythm, and we sort of finish each other's sentences verbally as well as on the page.
Exactly. That's true. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's fun. I think if it weren't fun, we wouldn't do it.
Absolutely. And you both have separate writing projects of your own, or am I right on that?
No, right. I think we're mostly focused on together, but I've written under Elsie Shaw 2 conspiracy thrillers that are more, like I said, more broad world, more traditional thrillers, and then Valerie is working on
just contemporary fiction. It's not a thriller, so it would be under a different name. It would be under my married name, because anything that would be under Constantine is going to be expecting a thriller from a, so.
Your brand, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
But we don't have time to do our indie stuff right now. We're focused on Liv, so that's our.
It's been a little busy.
Yeah. Got to keep the fans happy.
That's right.
Thank you. Well,
yeah.
I mean, from talking to readers, they devour your books so fast. Like, I guarantee some of the audience watching probably have already read the whole book and are like, when are they going to talk about the spoilers? We can't.
No, it's fun to be able to do. It's fun to do the book clubs because then you can talk about. Yeah,
it is fun. Absolutely. So,
more people commenting that they heard about it in the Sunday's Post Dispatch, and Oline, you also had a friend, Catherine, say hi earlier in the comment, like right away.
Catherine Hubbard, yeah. Yep. I've known her since I was 5 years old.
Oh, wow. That's how nice.
Since you two do know each other very well, do you think that some of the other writing teams, like I'm thinking in my head about Patterson and Clinton and Louise Penny writing with Hillary as well. And I'm wondering, like, if you didn't know someone as well as you two know each other, like, do you think you would be more bossy about the writing process? Do you think you would, like, kind of be less collaborative about it?
You know,
I feel like I'd be less bossy, don't you? I would be. I don't know.
when I heard about, when I first heard about the Clinton Patterson collaboration, I thought that maybe as the non-writer, that he would be feel more as sort of subservient to the writer. I don't know. I would assume that, but maybe that isn't the case, because I guess someone who's been president.
Yeah, and really intimidating. Yeah,
the head guy of the world.
Yeah.
That could be, kind of an explosive sort of collaboration. I just read today that Prince Harry is doing a memoir and has a ghostwriter, right? And I thought the same thing. Wow, I wonder how that's going to work.
For a ghostwriter, it's probably
there or what
much, but I think you need to be on. I would want to be on more equal footing, and then I still think it also depends. You have to have a similar sort of respect for each other, or a way that you want to. Because I've known other writing teams, and they'll say, "Ugh, that what you just wrote sucks," blah blah blah, and they're fine with saying that. We could not ever do that. I mean, if all we say is, okay, that was really good. It could use a little work. Do you mind if I edit it? And that's like, okay, sure, fine. We're very polite and very considerate. And I would have a hard time working with somebody, I think, that wasn't. And I would be afraid with somebody that I didn't have the trust level. Like with Valerie, I can send her a draft, my first draft, and she knows it's first draft. Doesn't matter. It's like, okay, just trying to get the bones down here. She's not going to criticize my writing or think. She knows that it's going to look better later. I might not feel that way with someone different, that I didn't know as well. I don't know. Don't you think, Val?
I think so too. Right. Yeah. It's sort of, you're exposing yourself.
Yeah.
And so you want to expose yourself to somebody you feel safe with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that whole safety and trust are important in a collaboration.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I'm sorry. I think that's very interesting what you say about the trust, because I'm thinking about the Charles Todd, which is a mother and son,
Mm-hmm.
and PJ Parrish, who are sisters also, though they're not writing anymore. And PJ Tracy, until the mother died, was a mother and daughter. And I think that kind of bonding would work so much better than, a ghostwriter and Patterson and the Clintons. I don't know.
I know it's fascinating. I wonder if he ever talks about that experience. And I mean, yeah.
I think I actually did see somewhere that there was a recent interview that brought up.
Oh, that would be
talking about.
Nice.
If I remember where I saw the headline, I'll try to find it.
Yeah.
I think I would be fairly intimidated to ghostwrite a Clinton book. Right?
Yeah, I would
Right?
not. Yes, that would
Be difficult. Yeah. So
I don't think we're going to have to worry about that, though.
I don't think so either.
All right. Well, I want to remind everyone that this book is available for sale at Left Bank Books. Signed copies, because you were so kind to send us book plates. So really, and I won't ask which of you
Sign
them. Yeah.
Different letters.
Right. Switch off the letters. And also, because I know that it is frequently asked, it is available in large print right now as well. So if you would like a large print copy, we do have those that will be available shortly. And I just this has been such a fantastic evening.
For us too.
This is my favorite genre. It's my bread and butter of what I like to read. And Oline, you did such a great job interviewing.
Oh, thank you. I had such a good time too. And thank you. I work hard on the questions.
No, we could tell. And no, we've been looking forward to it, really for the past couple. I was, thrilled when I found out that you were going to be moderating. So,
thank you so much. Yes.
We really appreciate it. And we definitely want to try to get a in-person visit to your store so we can come and be there. Yeah.
And then I can gush at you in person.
No, same right back at you. Yeah.
And a big thanks to the audience watching. You have been fantastic, and we hope to see you again really soon. Be sure to check out our event calendar. We have several mystery events planned and coming up, so definitely something that you might be interested in. So
That sounds good. And we'll see you on social media for sure. We'll be looking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Oline. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Len. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Shane.
Stay
Have a
well.
good night.
Good night.